Hello and welcome to Asmakam and Self-Learning Cafe's latest podcast series, Unlearned, where we'll be having conversations around education, mental health, movement, technology, and many other such topics, and unlearning the way we think about them. Each week, we will be having a couple guest speakers who will be sharing their unlearning journeys with us and will help us hopefully see things in a different light. Today we have two very special guests with us, Venetia and Gautam, who will be sharing their, frankly, very wonderful journey with us. And we'll be talking about how we can unlearn movement. With a shared aversion for the mainstream, Venetia and Gautam first started wandering off the beaten track on Gautam's Bullet, exploring the far corners of India, and eventually setting up a motorbike touring company. The birth of their first son, Uppu, led them down a different route to Karnataka's Sakleshpur, where they lived off grid for several years, jungle schooling their children. Right now, they're based in the small English village where Venetia grew up, and they're trying to find the right balance between conventional and alternative living as both of their boys grow up. But that's just me talking. Let's hear more of their story for them. So, how did this whole jungle schooling thing happen? What was the thought process behind that?
There wasn't so much a thought process. I think it just happened by accident.
Mm-hmm.
We basically decided that we felt it was difficult to bring up children in the city. We were living in Bangalore at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and so we started. We managed to buy some land in Sakleshpur, and we started. We never intended to move there. We just started spending time there. But the more time we spent there, the more we realized that how much it was benefiting us all. So
Right.
eventually we started living there full time, and it just became there was no need to send the older one to school because he was learning so much in the jungle, and it was a very it was an amazing experience. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's how the jungle schooling came about.
Yeah, and how are things right now? You're in England right now. How are things going? How are the boys?
Um, I think they have taken it to like fish. I mean, like fish takes to water, really, because it's we just replaced the landscape, maybe an
Mm-hmm.
English Dorset rolling hills, as opposed to the coffee
Mm-hmm.
plantation and the rainforests that they were in, right? And instead of climbing jackfruit trees to cut jackfruit, ripe jackfruits and bring them down, Upu and
Yes,
Theos now,
climbing the elderflower tree to collect elderflowers
yeah,
to make cordial.
and the
Wow.
flowers like.
Wow, that sounds
But we
amazing.
are Yeah, so Upal started school. He really wanted to start school, aged about 7. He started saying that
Mm-hmm.
he wanted to do that, and so that was one of the reasons we moved here, because we can still live in the countryside
Mm-hmm.
and have access to really good schools, and so that's what we're doing. So we've now
Mm-hmm.
done almost a year of schooling, so that's a new experience for him and for us. But all going well so far.
I think going
Wow.
back to our journey on biking, leading to
Mm-hmm.
Sakleshpur, children, and then Sakleshpur. So biking was never about, when Venetia and I used to travel, we used to travel. For us, it used to be long distance riding, right? It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't just fun, have a lot of beers. And I mean, it's associated with this biking culture. It's also associated with a certain kind of a subgroup, subculture.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
We were not a part of that. We wanted to
Mm-hmm.
explore what lied beyond, what lay beyond the highways, what lay beyond the tourist map. So Venetia, in fact, we used to. One of our best trips was tracking down the cloud in Meghadutam. So, but what we
Wow.
would do as it traversed from south to the north, so we
Mm-hmm.
tried to track the route using the poem as our and the map, and that this is pre Google Maps and everything. So we had a paper map and we had the poem, and Venetia plotted the route. And but what we realized was we would often kind of have to park the bike and then walk or trek or climb for quite a distance, and with
Mm.
all the gear and everything, and it became fitness had to kind of be get woven into our routine. Really, it wasn't so much about just riding and getting off and having a chai, and everything.
Mm.
So then when Upu was born and we were living in Bangalore and we started going to our friends' places. We in fact started riding to our friends' places and then driving subsequently because Upu, when there was a child, he had to put in a car seat. And as we started living in Sakleshpur, we started spending. Initially, the plan was to just go there for a weekend, but
Mm.
then there was no accommodation, so we had to put out tents, and then we started slowly spending. That the weekend of 2 days became 3 days, and which became 4 days. So we would leave on a Thursday, come back on a Monday evening or a Tuesday morning, and the more time we spent there, the more activities we did. We were also learning. We couldn't walk barefoot in the sense we would be amazed by all these guys walk the villagers, right, who've been brought up there.
Mm.
We would be all geared up. We'd go into the jungle with them, and we'd come back scratched and aching and broken. And all these guys with just their
Yeah, with
chappal,
nothing.
really, flip
Or,
flops,
or barefoot. A lot of them are
barefoot. Most of
barefoot.
them were
Yeah,
barefoot,
in the paddy
right?
fields. Yeah.
And they would enter the jungle and they'd come out. I mean, they'd walk really nimbly. And around the same
Mm.
time, we started looking at movements when like MoveNat, which really
Wow.
influenced us, which
Mm-hmm.
is almost like whatever parkour in the jungle, literally. Van Laco. I mean, I'm a great fan, and
Yeah.
slowly so on and so forth. And as as we started on our fitness, not fitness again, but
Mm.
getting nimble first and getting that
Mm.
first journey. We Vinisha also started researching on food, right?
Yeah.
Are the right kind of food? Is
Mm.
should we not grow our own food? We don't even know where the food's coming from, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
experiments with food,
Mm.
the right kind of food that would aid our, and also especially as we were more conscious of what we were putting in our bodies because we were now certainly role models to our,
Yeah.
what our
Mm.
old.
But I think, yeah, coming back to the movement piece, I think, when a lot of people who maybe are listening to this podcast might think,
Mm.
okay, they're going to talk about movement, they're going to say you should be more active. I mean, that's
Yeah.
one aspect, but that's a very that's a small part of it. But actually, I think the
Mm.
message that we've picked up in our journey in terms of movement is that it's not just about spending an hour in the morning going to the gym or doing a walk every day or something. It's one aspect is that we need to be moving throughout the day, that it shouldn't be this
Right.
pattern
Yeah.
of I spend 23 hours of the day either sitting or sleeping and 1 hour I
Right.
move, because that's not particularly beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, how we move. So when we talk about, increasing movement, there's a lot of movement that we do which is not very beneficial, but that we've
Right.
picked up. As a culture, we just feel it's normal. So to give you an example,
Mm-hmm.
if if you were to go to an Indian village and you see a woman bending down to pick up something from
Mm-hmm.
near her feet, yeah, she will bend at the hips.
Hip hinging.
It's called hip hinging, right? So she won't bend
Right.
her knees.
Yeah.
She bends at the hips with a straight back, and that's something that in traditional cultures, like in an Indian village, you'll see people do that, and that's a very healthy way to bend. But in the
Mm.
West, in maybe in the urban Indian context, you'll see
Squatting also.
people, yeah, squatting also, but you'll see people bend by arching their back and slightly bending their knees, and this kind of bending causes a lot of back issues, knee issues, and so on. So I think, and what we realize also is with the children, that children
Mm-hmm.
learn movement by very subconsciously, right?
Yeah.
Um, they pick it up just by watching those around them. So we
Yeah.
noticed
True.
that when Paul was about 4, we had gone out
Mm-hmm.
into the paddy fields to do what's called the nati, where they plant, they take the paddy sapling, seedlings and
Mm-hmm.
transplant them, right? That's really tough job that everyone in a village turns out to help with, and you spend
Yeah.
all day standing, in like knee-high muddy water, bending.
Mm-hmm.
And all the villagers were doing this hip hinging. But when I took a photo of Upuding, I noticed he's arching his back, right? So he's copied us, which means
Yeah.
we need to correct our movement in order for
Yeah.
him to learn better ways of moving. So this is just one example. So, and I think also what living out there in the jungle also made us realize is that there's a lot of natural movements that being in the right environment means that you naturally do. For instance, being able to climb a
Mm-hmm.
tree. Every villager in Sakleshpur can climb a tree, at least all
Yeah.
the men, because it's a vital part of their everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but a lot of us have lost that ability to climb, and this is to do with upper body strength, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
being able to hang. And if you go to a playground, you'll see that children absolutely love going on the monkey bars, and children do it very naturally. They're very good at hanging. They can,
Yeah.
we've got a photo or a video we can share later of our kids, even the 2-year-old, and he can do somersaults on those rings, those gymnastics rings and everything.
Yeah.
Whereas I really
Mm-hmm.
struggle. So how is it that as children we can do these things? Why? How do we lose
I
that
know.
ability? Because we
I
just
know. I
don't do
mean,
it as we grow up.
I I agree. I remember I used to be great at doing monkey bars as a kid. I loved it. That was the first thing I do when I went to the playground. And I think a couple years ago I tried doing it again, and I just couldn't. And it
Yeah,
was
this is what
I
happens.
think
Yeah,
so. We as this I think primates, right? We are designed to run. We're the only ones who are designed to run upright. We are designed to hang, right?
right.
And both things are, in an urban environment, and slowly culturally, in India, we're losing this because we used to go to the park in Koramangala, third block where we used to stay,
Mhm.
and I'd see a lot of children who was about 2.5, then maybe, right? And I used to see a lot of parents stop their child, or subconsciously transmit their fear of
Hmm.
into the child, in the sense the child would try and climb, go up the slide instead of climbing the steps, which anyway they would assist the child instead of letting the. I mean, how high is the child going to fall from? He's going to fall from some 6 feet maybe, right?
Yeah.
As the child is climbing, it's not going to
Hmm.
like but and I'd see parents asking their children to slow down, slow down,
Hmm.
or be safe, be safe,
yeah.
be safe,
No, don't go too high.
don't go too high. These are things that slowly, as they grow up, they stop walking. We take out a car to go, places which are just about a kilometer or two away, right? Where you
Right.
shouldn't
Yeah.
be taking out a car.
Hmm.
Two
Yeah.
kilometer or two is like a nice, decent 10-minute walk. you know
Yeah.
but it's just one of those things which, so we used to notice this, and like again, repeating, as we started becoming role models ourselves, because as we started, sorry, pardon me.
Exactly.
Let me show you what he's doing. He's lying in the
Yeah.
dog bed.
He's having a nice nap.
Aw.
Good dog.
So yeah, so yeah, so and as we realized, I couldn't climb a tree for nuts, and I'd see all these people climbing really quickly, and I realized I really needed to build that. I couldn't do the rope. All these things people do as an activity for 1 hour a day,
Yeah.
with a trainer, and so on and so forth, which I think is all right to start with. But
Mhm.
then
Mhm.
you slowly have to find a way to incorporate that in your entire day. You
Very
know,
true. Yeah.
It's what there's a particular woman called Katie Bauman. She's an author.
yeah.
Mhm.
She talks a lot. She's a biomechanist, I think is the word. She's studied a lot, and she's got a lot of qualifications. But she talks a lot about movement and how it affects various parts of the body. And
Hmm.
concept is we should stack our lives. That means that, we should incorporate movement into everything we do. So it shouldn't be that you have that
Right.
1 hour of movement and then, 23 hours of sedentariness. Instead of that, when you have to go get your groceries, don't take the car.
Right.
Go on foot and carry things back. Don't get it delivered. And if you have to go every 2-3 days rather than going once a week, fine. But like carry your shopping bags. Improve your upper body strength, or go out for a walk and go foraging. So you're kind of go pick some blackberries, or if you're in India, go get some wild mangoes. And so that you're stacking things. You're not just doing one activity at a time. And obviously, every time when you're outside, you're also getting exposure to the sunlight, which is good for your vitamin D levels. So you're trying to make sure, because we're all too busy to say that, like, oh, I'm going to do my 1 hour of sunlight time and then my 1 hour of movement, and then I'm going to do 1 hour preparing lunch. So you've got to sort of somehow combine them. That's
Very
that's
true.
concept that we found in Sakleshpur was very easy to do, because we would go out foraging, and and in the course of going foraging and looking for something, whatever it was, we would have to cross one of the little rivers there, and to cross it, the only way to cross it was someone has put across like some tree trunk, so we have to balance and cross. So that's great for your balance. That's great for and again, children love doing that kind of thing, right? Naturally, in a park, they'll always try and walk on top of a wall. And again, the mums are all saying, "Oh, don't do that! It's too dangerous. You might fall off. You might hurt yourself." So these are things that just by living in the jungle, we just did them naturally. But it's more difficult in an urban environment to incorporate them into your lives. But I think if you become aware, then you can. I mean, you don't have to climb trees to get that hanging experience.
You put a climbing frame in your living
room. You can put a ladder across, and we'll send it. We'll put in, give you some photos to illustrate this. But you could put a ladder across the ceiling, and then you could make monkey bars in your kid's room, or there's so many different ways of doing it.
It should be in the living room or in the passage, where if you're walking and you're walking through the passage maybe 40 times, 50 times a day, going from bedroom to the living room, kitchen, and so on and so forth. And if it's there, you just kind of out of the 50 times that you kind of cross that passage, maybe 10 times, maybe 20 times, you would just hang, and or just swing. It's just those small things,
everyday things.
Everyday things,
make it like an everyday part of your life. So, and another movement I think we really
and I want to actually, Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, well, so another thing that we feel is really important is squatting. So when I first came to India, I remember Gautam was living in some flat in Bombay, and one of the first things I did when I got there was I helped him to change the loo from an Indian loo to a Western loo, because I wasn't using an Indian loo. Now what we've done here, this was like 15 years ago, and now our journey is such that we've we're now living in a house with a conventional Western toilet. We've created a squatting platform so that we are able to squat rather than sit. So this is our journey. But I mean, I think this is something that's happening in India, right? Everyone wants to have a Western toilet, and again, in the village, people squat very naturally, very easily, and they squat just to, when they're eating or when they're talking, and it's something that happens every day. But what research is now showing that squatting is a really important movement for us. It's a really important thing that we should be able to do. Partly in order to eliminate waste. The human body is designed to pass feces by squatting, not by sitting. By sitting, the mechanics of the gut are not designed to work like that. So that causes I mean, again, we can send some references. That causes an enormous amount of issues. I mean, in the West, constipation is one of the big problems, sort of lifestyle diseases, right? And this is
diabetes, and a lot of gut cancer. It's all mostly
we can't eliminate properly. So so that's why we've now built ourselves a squatting platform, which we put round the conventional Western toilet here, so that we can squat even though we're in England. But even squatting away from, not just on the toilet, but in everyday life is again a really important thing. And if you see children's little, toddlers, they squat all the time, and they do it really easy. They naturally squat to bend down and pick something up. And again, we lose that ability as we grow up. Why? Because we don't do it, or people tell us it's the wrong thing to do, or we're used to which is a sitting toilet. So
At this point, I'd just like to say that while we are seated on chairs, it's obviously because we're talking on we on this podcast. But
Yeah.
I've read sitting is a new cancer because,
yeah,
and in fact, modern offices,
sitting
Yeah.
is a new
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
smoke.
sitting is the new smoking or sitting is the
Definitely.
new whatever. So it's modern
Sitting is
offices
the new
have
smoking. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
but then
Yeah.
don't stand for too long. In fact, one of the organizations that I've worked with, and it's slowly driving a fitness evolution in the country, Pure Fit, right? So Mukesh Bansal, he very far-sighted man, he installed walking desks. So there were these things that
Wow.
looked like treadmills with a maximum speed of 4 or 5, really. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're on a call, if you're not typing something but you're reading something, right? If you're
Mm.
reading an email, for example, right, you could continue to just walk. There were monkey bars across the office everywhere. Correct.
Right. Yeah.
There were those trampoline, mini trampoline things. So that and it'd be very funny to go past a room and see 4 people in weird poses, and it's all a very this conversation that they're having.
And this is again stacking. This is
They're stacking movement through the day.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
stacking movement alongside your your everyday working life. So it's
And
great.
something that is linked to this because you're trying to start movement because it starts with a thought, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because you try to start movement through the day, you will tend to not eat crap or overfill with food
Mm.
in one go. Because if you eat a lot, your sugar levels and everything they go haywire, and you also feel lethargic. And if you're feeling too heavy, you're not going to really move. So it's a double-edged
Yeah.
sword. So your eating also improves if you improve your movement.
Yeah.
Mm. Right. Yeah.
You had
Very
a
true. I think.
question. Sorry, interrupted you.
Yeah. No. I think I was just saying. What a lot of what you said really resonates. I think we've really separated movement from our daily lives now. It's something that
I,
you have to take
You
time
box it.
out
yeah,
for. Yeah. You put it in a
I
box
mean
when it used to be so easy.
yeah. That's crucial. See, what you said is so true that we've separated it from our normal lives. And actually, see,
Yeah.
now what we've done is we've called it exercise, right?
Mm.
So we're not talk, we've deliberately not used the word exercise in this podcast because we're not talking about, we don't want to talk about exercise and people think of it as a separate activity that they do once a day.
Mm.
We want,
Mm.
we want to, we want people to think about movement as something that they do every second of their lives and how to
Right.
optimize that movement and
Yeah.
increase it. Because it's as important as eating well,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that we're moving continually and in the right ways, for our body, to be
Yeah.
in its best health.
Yeah, not calling it exercise is a great thing because then you can. It's a peacock on the bullet. Stop it. Sorry, there's a peacock on I think somewhere around you, and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
these guys think whatever this peacock, whatever. There's somebody around you who's
we're getting
barking,
too excited. Yeah.
right?
Mm.
Sorry. So because the moment you start treating it like an exercise, you will tend to box it in a day, no,
Yeah.
in a part of your day, and then the rest of the day would be sedentary. And I've
Mm.
walked into offices and people have been sitting like, I'd like to demonstrate. Let's get up, right? They would have a laptop, right, and they'd be seated like this with a laptop on their belly or whatever, and they'd be sitting on a beanbag, and that's how they'd be working. And
Yeah.
I tried to these guys, why would you like work like this? And there was no there was no traction to my conversation.
Mm.
So I think because we've talked a lot about how we, found it easy to incorporate all this movement into our lives when we're living in the jungle. But now we're not living in the jungle so much, although we're running an active homestead and we have big vegetable gardens. So in that way, we still have a lot of movement incorporated into our lives. But for people who don't, who are working in an office, who are living in a conventional house, I think there are a few things that we could share to help people. We don't want people to think that, okay, well, I'm not living on a farm or in a jungle, so this doesn't apply to me. It shouldn't be like that. So I think there's a lot of changes you can make in your house. Like we talked about hanging, and we'll share some photos to illustrate those ideas. In terms of squatting, in India, it's easy for you guys to switch your Western toilet to an Indian toilet. We can't do that here because there aren't Indian toilets available.
Right.
But a squatting platform, if you're not comfortable, or if you have guests coming and you have an elderly relative who can't squat, but you can get around that. And again, we can show a photo of what that platform looks like. It's very easy to make yourself, or get a carpenter to. The other thing you can do is minimize your furniture. So at the moment in our living room, we have zero furniture except for an old armchair someone gave us, which is for when my father comes around, and he doesn't like sitting on the floor. But otherwise, we sit on the floor. Sometimes we lie on the floor. Sometimes we, it's just like anything goes. The only thing that you don't do in there is sit in the chair, because sitting with your legs hanging down is something we all do way too much of. It's, we can't help but do it when we're traveling in a car, in a plane, on a bus, on a train, in the office, in school. So as far as possible, get rid of your furniture, get rid of the comfy sofa, and get rid of your, have a low seating dining area with where you sit on the floor.
The Japanese have
like
that.
how the Japanese have
and
it.
in Indian households, they still, it's not about sitting on the floor. You could still put a like a what is called a pitha, like a platform, like a small little wood platform, which is just about maybe 3 or 4 inches high. So you could sit cross-legged, but you still you could still, your knees could be down, so that you're not sitting all the time like that. That which could be with back issues, have issues with.
And the other thing, I think, just as a thought, I know this may seem too much for some people, but we've, we tend to have in the last 50 years accumulated or acquired a lot of labor-saving devices, especially in the kitchen. Even for cleaning the house, right? So, again, in the villages, people still grind that coconut chutney by hand. Now, I mean, that is quite hard work. I do use a... But you can think about those kind of things. And something that we do here is we haven't got a regular mop on a handle, with the long handle, and we squat on the floor like the what are they called, the bais in Maharashtra, and we squat and you squat and you move backwards, from the area where you're starting to mop the floor, and that's a great movement, because you're squatting and you're also having to move, sideways or backwards on your legs as you squat. And that's also, I was recommended to do this as an exercise when I was pregnant by my yoga teacher. Continued. So we do mopping in the traditional Indian way. And so again, it's part of cleaning the house, but you're getting in there. So everyone who cleans their house every day, this is an easy way to incorporate a bit more movement.
My mom says this. So we have a house help who comes for other stuff, but she sits down on 2 legs, she squats, and she does the sweeping and the mopping. And this is what she says. She's like, why do I go to a gym and pay them and then pay someone else to come to my house when
Exactly. And take the time to go to the gym, and then someone else is spending that time, or you're spending that time cleaning your house. So it's a crazy thing that we've got into this situation. Even washing your clothes. I mean, we do have a washing machine now, but in Sakleshpur, because here also you have to wear thick, heavy clothes and lots of layers because it's cold, so it's difficult to hand wash. But in Sakleshpur, we didn't have a washing machine. I washed everything by hand, and again, that was squatting time. There was a lot of physical hard work. And so that's, again, even if you don't wash all of your clothes by hand, at least you could think about maybe doing a few each day, and it's just another way to incorporate movement into your life.
Yeah.
So, these are just some ideas. And I think in the office, Gautam's already spoken a bit about that. Obviously, it's more difficult in an environment where, outside the home, where you're not completely in control.
So there are many things, right? In an office environment, for example, if you want to have a meeting, why do you have to get into a room? Go for a walk. Just walk around the office block, right? People tend to
Right.
do that, but they tend to have cigarettes in their hands, right? So if you don't have a cigarette in your hand, and if you don't have a chai in your hand, right, to go with it, right, you might go around, you might walk a little more. Maybe just go
True.
down.
Yeah.
If your office is on maybe fifth floor or sixth floor or whatever floor, maybe the
Yeah.
23rd floor, 28th floor, as my office was in one of the buildings back in Bangalore at Amazon. I'd walk up with a colleague, right? And my colleagues they didn't like that. They didn't like that. But go for a walk, right?
Yeah.
I conduct interviews for candidates I was hiring by saying, listen, it's fine. Why don't we, if they had to show me something, that was a different matter. But we put that away and said, okay, fine, let's just go out for a park. And we were fortunate to have some parks around our, all offices that I worked with had some sort of a park around us, and we just go for a walk. And I mean, when I'm walking with somebody, I don't lose my ability to talk.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't. It's not like I need to be in a very serious, tubular environment to be able to concentrate on my business conversation, right? But at some point in the conversation, I'd like to speak about just the people who've influenced us, which I'd like to share with a lot of readers, because
Yeah. Yeah.
when I went to back, I had some lower back issues where my disc was protruding to the left or something, right? And as usual, I was told surgery, corrective
Yeah.
surgery, and I didn't want to do that. I showed him the proverbial middle finger, but I didn't want to do that, right? And we started researching on, are there other ways to get it right, right? Of course,
Right.
there's yoga and other things, but then can you do things in your daily life? So Venetia
Mm.
found out about a doctor called Esther Gokhale, right? And she has this brilliant book called Eight Steps to Pain-Free Back, which is also where we read about hip hinging and other things, right? And we have
Mm.
observed it in close quarters. But it's about how you drive a car. Again, I've seen people, if this is the car seat, their hip would be quite forward to the, in the seat, right? They'd be sitting like this, right?
Yeah.
And they'd be driving
Yeah.
the
Leaning
seat,
back. Yeah.
and because their neck is now like this, because they're leaning back, because they're leaning actually lying back, now they need a neck pillow, which is stupid,
Yeah.
all you need to do is, when you get in, she shows it in her book. When you get in, you need to kind of just push your hip back into the nook where the seat base meets the
Mm.
backrest, and then just, you don't have to sit upright, because that's again putting pressure on your spine. You just need to kind of
Mm.
ease back, and that way you will automatically be sitting kind of straightish without being erect. There's a difference in erect and straight, because in
Yeah.
schools, for example, they screw us over, because by
Mm.
asking us that classic thing
Sit
of
up straight.
chest out,
Sit up
what's
straight.
that?
Yeah.
Tummy in, chest out, shoulders back, right? And that puts a lot of pressure on the lower back. You're
Mm.
not meant to do that. Your knees are meant to be a little. They got to be. You try jumping with straight knees.
Yeah.
You can't. You need
Mm.
to have your knees bent. If we were hunter
Mm.
gatherers, we've got to be observing. Our natural posture has to be where we can look at the ground 20 to
Mm.
30 feet away.
Right.
you
Yeah.
know if we can do that, instead of doing this absolute straight this thing, it's
Hmm.
and then you go for corrective measures.
So
Yeah.
Posture.
posture is also part of the movement equation, right? Like, having the right posture is again something, and that if you look at sort of less or more traditional cultures, you'll see
Mm.
that they have very good posture, and as a result, they don't have all this back pain and so on that we
Right.
experience. Well, So that's something, as Gautam said, Esther Gokhale is a very good resource on that.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think the other thing that is important to just touch on here, I mean, it's a whole nother topic, but is that we all tend to wear the wrong footwear. By the wrong
Yeah,
footwear,
yeah,
I mean, over cushioned
yeah.
footwear, a raised heel.
Mm-hmm.
It's constricting our toes. So we've now moved to what is called minimalist or barefoot shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And again, in Sakleshpur, we basically were barefoot most of the time, but here it's less practical because it's cold.
Also.
Yeah.
So, this is like, something you can do with your children, is buy them some barefoot shoes, because especially for children while their feet are still growing, if
Mm-hmm.
they don't wear the right footwear, and 99% of the footwear that people are wearing is wrong,
Yeah.
is not actually beneficial for the body. So what happens is their feet develop in the wrong way. That leads to
Calves,
repercussions,
hips, back, everything.
knees, everything. We don't realize how important the foot is. So that's something I would say, just have a look at that. And there are now barefoot shoes available in India. And just take your shoes off. You're in a
Yeah,
hot country,
I know.
at least at home, walk without shoes, which in many Indian houses people do. But, in a
Mm.
park or somewhere where it's clean underfoot, take your shoes off and enjoy it. It's really nice.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was actually reading about this, about how, we have a natural arch in our in our
Mm,
feet, and most shoes are flat. The soles
yeah.
are flat, so it's not good for our feet.
Yeah, no, I mean,
No,
the design of the shoe
and
is
the biggest, I think Nike and whatever the other big footwear companies have, they
Mm-hmm.
have
Mm-hmm.
destroyed more knees than, I'm not calling out Nike specifically, but I'm just saying most of these footwear companies have destroyed more knees than they have helped, because what the
Mm-hmm.
additional foam and additional ability to absorb impact does is it has improved. Of course, it has improved people sprint faster for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's 100 meters, 200 meters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you're doing long distances, you tend to kind of take longer steps, and you try and run barefoot, right? Your cadence would be higher, you'd be more upright. You'd run, if you see black and white films of how people used to run versus how people run today, right? And then you correlate that to the incidence, rise in the incidence of back related issues and the knee related issues, right? And damaged. I think we've lost her maybe.
no. Are you still there, Maitreyee?
There's a,
Oh,
yeah, sorry.
yeah.
We lost you for a bit, I think. Maitreyee?
Yeah, yeah, I think, I don't know.
Oops.
It's still recording.
I think there's a Wi-Fi problem at her end.
Maybe we should show Theos' shoes. He's wearing them, right? You want to come and show your shoes?
Hey,
Low battery.
you want to go there? What? It's low battery. You want to come sit? No. Maitreyee's gone. She'll be back in a minute, I guess. Oh, look, I think she's coming back now. Hi, Maitreyee. We lost you. No worries. Yeah.
So I was just talking about. I have to move this. Are you there?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, I'm
So I
there.
was just talking about,
The problems that
yeah. So here.
over cushioned shoes
There.
create.
So
Yeah,
this, for
yeah.
example, just got some little sole in the little sole, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of it is flat. The biggest thing that these shoe companies have done is they've made that arch support, which is the biggest bullshit that they've been able to market really well, because pardon my language, right? Because that has actually, your arch is an arch is the most strong natural structure, either in architecture or in human body, right? If you look around, it's the arches, and if the
Mm-hmm.
building falls away, the arches standing, right? It's the same thing with human body, right? And not everybody needs. I mean, yes, of course, if you don't have an arch foot, a flat foot like mine, there might be knee issues and everything like that. We kind of will encounter, but at some point, these shoes actually damage it even more, right? Because we're not.
Right.
If you walk barefoot, it's been shown, if you walk barefoot, your arch, you slowly regain your arch.
Yeah.
Your arch,
Mm-hmm.
because it's playing your
Yeah.
foot.
And your foot grows stronger, basically. The problem is that, someone compared wearing regular shoes is like how, imagine if
Mm-hmm.
you've broken your arm and your arm is in a cast like this. Yeah. And
Right.
you lose movement of that arm for, a month, 2 months, right? When you take the cast off,
Mm-hmm.
all the muscles will have atrophied. And you then have to do physio just to get your arm to
Mm.
function normally. That's what we've done with our feet. In putting them in these trainers and these shoes, sneakers and all, it's like we're putting them into a cast. The muscles don't work properly, the joints don't work properly, and that causes like so many problems down the line. So we need to free the feet.
Right.
Also somewhere, the aesthetics of footwear, the form has overruled function even for the best sports footwear, by being pointed. Our feet are not pointed. Our toes need to be splayed.
Yeah.
When you're walking barefoot, your
Right.
toes will be splayed. So there are companies
Mm.
like Altra, company that called Altra, which makes shoes. They have zero drop shoes, and they have which is there's no, the heel's not above the
The heel's not raised.
heel's
Mm.
not raised, and also it's not the best looking footwear for sure, because it's the toe box, as it's called, is very wide, but then that helps
Mm.
you actually splay your toe. And since I've been using those also, because it's kind of cold here and you need something to do, right? And I was looking for shoes to wear while I run, and running in them, the calves and the knees and everything have, it's just gone, the pain, literally, right?
Mm.
And because also I'm
Wow.
having to run slower, but not slower really, but with higher
More consciously,
cadence,
yeah.
more consciously, you know. And
Mm.
and I know another, another resource that I'd like to share here, two books that Venetia introduced to me, and which
Mm-hmm.
completely changed my life, really, and my take on life. Apart from Katie Bowman, was this gentleman called Christopher McDougall. He wrote
Mm-hmm.
uh, Born to Run. It's one of those books. Definitely the top 10 books of all times. Born to
Mm.
Run. It's about the Tarahumara.
Yeah, it's about barefoot running.
It's about barefoot running, right? Born to Run and Natural Born Heroes. I think these two books are by Christopher McDougall, and they
Yeah.
have about the second book is about Cretans, how they would bounce from rock to rock and climb,
Mm.
the rocky hills of, where people would, and we've seen this in Himachal, where the Gaddi tribe, they would kind of climb really quickly, really nimbly, deftly, right, without, and being very light on their feet. They're not stomping. They're not putting their hand on their knees and kind of pulling themselves up. So they're also not getting tired. It's about being light on your feet. So
Right.
so
Yeah.
sources are important, if anybody is watching this, and if you want to read more about it.
Yeah, we definitely.
In fact,
Yeah.
I don't want to say my friend's name, but a friend of mine was starting. He come back from the US. He wanted to start a footwear company. He was really
Mm-hmm.
keen and called me. We moved here, and we spoke for a while. And then I asked him. I said, "Listen, have you read this book?"
Mm.
And he read the book. And of course, he's on a better, maybe a better business idea now, and he still has a startup. He's gone down another route, but this book prevented him from starting another shoe company. He didn't want to be responsible for damaging the
Wow.
knees, essentially, is what he said, right? And he didn't
Wow.
start.
Wow. So I also have a few sort of rapid fire questions for you. So these are questions that we sort of ask all our guests. So
Sure.
just don't think about this too much. What the first thing that pops into you guys' head, just roll with it.
Okay.
Okay, so my first question is, and you both can answer this separately as well. Um, what is the most important thing that you guys have unlearned up till now?
About movement or
Yeah,
about movement?
I think
About
this is a good
movement,
moment.
or maybe just in general as well.
Um, I'd say for me, it's just the movement is like every second of the day, and is
Hmm.
sort of incorporating it into your lifestyle and learning from the environment. It's not something that you do in a separate
Sorry.
room. Yeah.
I think I have had to
Hmm.
work hard. I am not shy from admitting that I've failed at it and I've tried again. And I've tried to unlearn to sit.
Mm.
The way we've been taught to sit in school and sit in
Mm.
car and sit everywhere, and that's been. And I've had back issues, so it's the one thing
Mm.
that's kind of helped me. So that's I've worked hard to unlearn that. It's not been
Wow.
natural for me.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So my next question is, if you could go back and change one thing about your education or your school life, what would it be?
I know for sure. Manisha, you want to go first?
Um, I, I would have changed everything. If I could change one thing about our children's school life, given that they're now, the older ones going to school, I would say I would just love it if they could, you know, ditch the classroom and be outside.
So Venetia cycles to school if it's raining, and it's really cold here when it rains, right?
It's
Mm.
snowing.
And snowing last time, and few days back, not few days, a few months back, it was snowing, and these two were still on a cycle to school with Theos
Wow.
sitting behind Venetia in the lady seat. Right? So whereas most families do tend to take out the car at the sight of rain. Um, I think
What do you think?
so. I would incorporate more sports, physical
Mm.
activities. Get the children to clean the corridors, clean the classrooms, Get the children to do it rather than
Mm.
getting and the posher the school, the more the
The more
support staff. I am
Mm.
it's so sad there are schools in India which have AC classrooms and all. That's shameful, right? Because you're kind of putting your children in a coffin already, right? At some level,
Right.
right?
Very true.
So
Yeah.
to me, you're so rather than the kind of school I went to, it had um, uh, two games periods in a week, 50 minutes
Mm.
or 40 minutes, something like that, which is stupid, I think. It needs to be, more,
Yeah.
way
Especially
more.
especially
Yeah.
with younger children. Well, children
And
with
don't tell
kids.
them to stop running in the
Yeah.
corridors, man.
Yeah.
Don't tell them to stop running in the up, down
Yeah.
the stairs,
Yeah.
walk in a single file.
Uh,
This is a
I
prison.
know.
They've turned schools into prisons.
Yeah.
We
Everybody
have.
comes under the
Yes.
stairs,
Very true.
you know.
Yeah. And I
So
think
that's
so.
my
Venetia also sort of Yeah, Venetia also sort of answered this next question, but what is one thing that you really want that you think should be a part of your children's education?
Yeah, okay. So in terms of, I mean, given if they're going to go to school, yeah, I would say
Mm.
my main issue with school is that they sit too much and they don't go
Mm.
outside nearly enough. We're in a beautiful, rural countryside, and there's just loads of opportunity to get out.
Mhm.
Um, but I think, I mean, I think both of us feel that school has a place in a child's education, but I think school, so many people think that school equals education, but that's
Right.
not
Yeah.
how it is. Right? There's so much education that can happen, before school, after school,
Yeah.
and I think school is a part of it. For us, school is more about the socializing and socialization and
Mhm.
learning how, group
Mhm.
dynamics and so on. I think actually most of the education happens elsewhere. And yeah, so just to sort of think beyond school, and be sort of more holistic about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
also, Barack Obama's wife, Michelle Obama. I mean, to me,
Mhm.
at some point, if there has to be a first lady, it's
Thank
got
you.
to be like her. She actually came out and spoke about, or Cristiano Ronaldo, who actually moved Coca-Cola bottles aside. That's a recent thing to go viral.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
moved bottles aside and said, "Drink water,"
Good.
which is to me like that's what I want. You don't want cricketers
Yeah.
and Bollywood stars, touting Pepsi and Coke.
Yeah.
They don't drink Pepsi
I
and Coke.
know.
I know cricketers,
Yeah.
thanks to my career and everything, and none of them actually drink Coke. They so why promote
Why
it, man?
promote it?
Just for money?
I know.
That's really
I
sad.
know. I know. Yeah, it is. It's very hypocritical.
Yeah, I know. For everything for money, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, and so my last question is, so we've talked a lot about how as people we need to, how as individuals, there are so many movements that we need to unlearn. Um but I also wanted to, and this can be a general thing as well, if you we don't have to also relate it to movement, but what is one thing that you think we all need to sort of unlearn globally, like in the entire world, as a community, as human beings?
um,
See, I'm still trying to unlearn them. I did a slide.
I would just say that we need to unlearn this kind of th- this perspective on life that, that whatever everyone else does, or the authorities tell us, that's what we should do. Because
Yeah.
so much,
Mm,
we just don't kind of realize that there can be a different way of doing things,
right.
because we're
Yeah.
just so, our neighbors are doing it, the government tells us to do it, so we just do it. Although, not just the
Right.
government,
Yeah.
the marketing companies, so I think
The
it's
pharma
it's
lobbying.
unlearning, compliance, maybe is the word,
Mhm.
or kind of obedience,
Yeah.
and just walk in a
Mm,
line because everyone else is doing it. Let's try and unlearn that and question every single thing in your life, that not in a way to challenge everything, but just ask yourself, what's the logic behind this? Does it make
mhm.
sense? Is there a better way of doing it? Am I doing it for the right reasons? And you keep that questioning attitude throughout your life, and look at your children and how
Right.
they live, and the
Wow.
same way. And I think if you do that, then
Mhm.
yeah, you end up with, I mean, that at least we found, we end up with, a better way of
So you
living.
don't, yeah. So the idea is to obviously, be scientific in your outlook. Do enough research
Mm,
on your own. Do not just take everything at face value what the government or the doctors or anybody else
right.
tells you, because
Right. Yeah.
not saying they all have an agenda, but they do. They're peddling a certain kind of
Mm,
philosophy.
mm,
And obviously medicines have to sell, so to feed their families maybe, right? But at some point, ask yourself the question, right?
yeah.
Example, is it one person's job to Venetia is growing food and we don't buy any veggies, for
Hmm.
example. Venetia is growing all the veggies here, right? But we are fine if we're fortunate enough to have a large enough place to grow lots of veggies. But then people
Mm,
use the herbs in
Yeah,
their balcony, or
greens. Yeah.
tomatoes, in their balcony, and a few things people could do. It's not about you don't not everybody can get out to the rural environment or the greens.
right.
You could try and do that, in a small flat also.
Hmm.
It's a thought.
Yeah.
If you don't have a thought,
Yeah.
you're not really going to make any
Yeah.
progress, right?
Hmm.
And
Very
also,
true. Yeah.
also, also invite so you invite the light of knowledge from
Yeah.
everywhere. So
Hmm.
well, take everything at face value. Also read other perspectives, and then make
Hmm.
Yeah.
correct. We'll stop here because we might say something which might not be totally. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's been amazing listening to you guys and having you on the podcast. Thank you so much, Venetia and Gautam, for taking the time out to speak with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It
We've
was
really
lovely
enjoyed
to
it,
see
and
you also.
we look forward to listening to the other podcasts also and learning
Yes,
from them. So,
yes. So great. Thank you so much. To our listeners, we will see you guys next week. Till then, keep unlearning
Thank
and
you.
bye for now.
Bye.
bye.